everything right now. I couldn't think of a better person to have on right now than Glenn Kirschner, um, former federal prosecutor, now former MSNBC legal analyst, I think for over 6.5 years. Glenn, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, Scott. Thanks for having me on. I am brand new to Substack. I launched just a few days ago, so please be gentle with me because I am not an IT guy. I have to learn a new app and I break out in hives. So just bear with me here.
He did great. It was actually one of the first times where I got it and I didn't have to text and email back. It was immediate. So it was actually pretty impressive, the connection there. Um, you were on top of it. So why did you, and this is, we're not promoting Substack. That's not what we're doing, because I know some people will say in the comments, why are you pushing? But I am curious, like, why did you decide to make the move to more independent media now?
Yeah, so I know Substack has been growing over the years. I was unfamiliar with it, but the more I saw some of my friends, my former colleagues, my legal analyst community gravitating toward Substack and talking about how they were moving in the direction of being independent from corporate media, legacy media, mainstream media, it became very attractive. I talked to some of the folks who run Substack. I have to give a shout out to my partner in the legal breakdown, Brian Tyler Cohen,
Oh yeah.
because he is on Substack and he was recommending that I get on there because it's a great place to, speak your mind, be completely independent. And I am not pushing Substack either. Nothing that I do is behind a paywall on Substack,
Mhm.
but there is like a private comment section if people really want to support my work, my mission. I don't urge people to do that. I try to keep nothing behind a paywall on any of my platforms.
Right. And yeah, Brian was on here before, a few days before his book was named, I think, a New York Times bestseller. And so you're welcome, Brian. No, I think his mass media performances and being out there constantly and being a trusted name on YouTube and elsewhere, like you are, but friend of the show and really a great guy as well. So there's one main question that everyone probably asks you, and I'll ask that later. No, the what do you think about the dropping of the Trump criminal cases overall? I mean, it just, we were so close as a country to keeping making sure that he was actually held accountable. I look back on it, and there's some people who are angry with Garland, and some people who defend him. I've heard different stories from different people about how it was played and whatnot. But what are your thoughts about just the overall Trump criminal cases and how it's gone down?
I had hoped for the best from the new DOJ leadership, Pam Bondi, Emile Bove, Todd Blanche, and we have gotten the worst because
Hmm.
their decision to drop the criminal prosecution against Mayor Eric Adams is abject corruption. I was a federal prosecutor for 30 years. I indicted a lot of cases. I tried a lot of cases. I declined to bring charges in a lot of cases governed by the facts and the law. And I dismissed cases when it was the right thing to do. You know what's the wrong thing to do? If I were the prosecutor and I said to a defendant, Mayor Eric Adams or anybody else, look, we got the goods on you. You're indicted. Have you read your 57-page indictment? And there's more where that's coming from. That's according to the lead prosecutor on the case, Hagan Scotton. But you know what? If you will help me or my boss with our political priorities, we're going to dismiss your case. That is not just abject corruption. It is, frankly, a page out of the book Unethical Behavior for Dummies. That's just how bad it is. Scott, it may also very well be criminal because what I
Mhm.
just described to our viewers here constitutes conspiracy to commit bribery and bribery, two separate offenses. Why? Bribery is me misusing my federal government position and authority and power for my own personal gain or for the personal political gain of my boss. It
Right.
also may be obstruction of justice. I've never wanted to be a judge in my life, and I can tell stories about that. some other time. But I would kill to be Judge Dale Ho for just a day, because he is the judge who now has in his capable hands that corrupt motion to dismiss. And I suspect he's going to want some answers. I would require Emile Bove, who has shown himself to be willing to do Donald Trump's corrupt bidding. I would put his stinking butt on the witness stand. I would place him under oath, and I would wear him out about this apparently corrupt dismissal. And I don't I don't conclude it's corrupt because I'm inferring things. Emile Bove said in a statement that was released, this is not based on the evidence. It's
Right.
not based on the facts. It's not based on the law. It's because we want him to help Donald Trump on the immigration front. Are you flipping kidding me? You said the corrupt and criminal part out loud, Emile. So you better buckle up, Buttercup, because I think you may have some trouble coming your way, courtesy of Judge Ho.
Right. I wouldn't have a problem with that either. But now, the other day, as an activist on the side, or maybe some people say full time, I saw AG Pam Bondi come out. It's like, I'm coming out like it was a wrestling match or something. She's coming out and she opens up the book and says, "Today I filed charges against the state of New York. I filed charges against Governor Kathy Hochul. I filed charges against Letitia James and Mark Schroeder, whatever." And my heart dropped for a second, and I was like, "How do you get the investigation, the indictment, the like everything all down, and they're going to get arrested?" And I started making phone calls, and then it was like maybe 5 minutes later where somebody said it's a civil case. Like they texted me, and I was like, what? Like what are they what are they doing? Like what do you take away from that kind of move to come out and just like it seems like Trump wanted her to go out and say charges so that he could say they were charged too. They charged me, but I charged them.
Yeah,
Like
she obviously checked her ethics at the doors to the Department of Justice, and she is not uninitiated in the ways of prosecutorial speak. She
mhm.
was a prosecutor. She was an attorney general in Florida, I believe, for 8 years. She knows exactly how she misrepresented to the American people what she did. She didn't file charges. That means you've indicted somebody or you filed a complaint, criminal complaint against them. She didn't file charges. But Scott, perhaps we shouldn't be surprised because remember when Bill Barr, Donald Trump's prior corrupt attorney general, lied about the Mueller report,
Yeah.
and Judge Reggie Walton, a lion of DC criminal justice circles, former prosecutor appointed by Reagan. I mean, this guy will say on the bench, because I've been in his courtroom when he has said it, listen, I am not some, radical liberal here. He was appointed exclusively by Republican judges, but he concluded Bill Barr spun the Mueller report, mischaracterized the Mueller report, and he said, and I can pretty much quote it verbatim, Bill Barr's assertions about the Mueller report are contradicted by the Mueller report. So Pam Bondi is following in Bill Barr's footsteps. I had, I won't say high hopes. I had sort of moderate hopes for her, and she has already let the country down. And the other thing that she did that really so infuriated me, because we really do prosecute without fear or favor, and we really don't have enemies lists. She testified in her confirmation hearing there will be no enemies list at my Department of Justice. On day one, among the 13 memos she issued, was an enemies list. She actually said, we will be investigating Jack Smith and his staff, Letitia James and her staff, District Attorney Alvin Bragg and his staff, and the investigators and prosecutors who handled J6 cases. That's an enemies list. At the Department of Justice, we don't make announcements like that. But this is not your father's or your mother's Department of Justice. This is Donald Trump's Department of Justice.
And one of the most common questions I get are people like, you know, they'll say in Congress, the member of Congress, like Raskin or another friend of ours, Swalwell, they'll say there were illegal acts that were committed by Musk or Doge or somebody like that. and they ask me, why isn't he arrested? Why isn't this happening? Why aren't they indicted? Why aren't they in trouble for it? Um, there's a lot of different court cases obviously going on right now from different attorneys general across the country against Doge, against the Trump administration as well. Um, so let's say that why isn't anything happening? Is what he's doing criminal of nature? And if it's or is it just I'm not sure exactly the term because I'm not a lawyer, but why isn't he in trouble for doing these things? Or is it a position where he just kind of can go out and do whatever he wants because he's anointed by Trump? Like, is he lawless because he can get a pardon, or there's no enforcement mechanism for someone like that? Like, what's the deal?
Yeah, so I don't think the question is what he's doing illegal really is relevant anymore. Let's jump right to if he is engaged in illegal conduct, who's going to prosecute him? Not
Right.
Donald Trump's Department of Justice or the United States Attorney's Office for the District of Columbia, where I served for decades. We were the prosecutors for all the federal prosecutors and the local prosecutors for all of Washington, D.C. You think Donald Trump is going to direct his Department of Justice to hold Elon Musk accountable in the event he's committing crimes? Not a chance. But there are more than 50 legal challenges that have been filed in the courts against Musk, the Doge, and others. Unlawful terminations of inspectors general, unlawful freezing of allocated government funds to the states. And here is really the marquee case. And this is what I think we all need to keep paying attention to. Donald Trump, in his first few days in office, signed a quote, blatantly unconstitutional executive order trying to revoke the constitutional guarantee of birthright citizenship. And a Ronald Reagan appointed judge, I didn't know there were many of those folks left on the bench, been on the bench more than 40 years, a federal judge out in Seattle, said what Donald Trump did when he signed this executive order is, quote, blatantly unconstitutional. And then he posed the question, where were the lawyers in the room? Again, I think that's a naive question. I'm not criticizing that judge. Donald Trump is intentionally, knowingly signing unlawful and unconstitutional executive orders. Why? Because he wants to bubble this stuff up to what he will call his Supreme Court. And he hopes that the Department of Justice, the Solicitor General, will be able to convince at least 5 Supreme Court justices to, again, ignore the Constitution or rewrite the Constitution, or, as they did in the presidential immunity case, rule that the Constitution is unconstitutional. Those are not my words. I'm quoting one of our preeminent constitutional scholars, Professor Akil Reed Amar from Yale. Donald Trump knows what he's doing is lawless and unconstitutional, and he hopes the Supreme Court will again have his back as we all march in the direction of autocracy. I hope, Scott, that, and this is a fever dream, I'll admit, a little bit of hopium, all right? A little bit of hopium, just stay with me here, that the Supreme Court recognizes the Frankenstein monster of a president they've created. And when they get one of these cases that they decide to accept for review, an unconstitutional executive order, they use it as a vehicle to revisit the wisdom of the presidential immunity ruling. I know it's a fever dream because look at who those 5 justices are up there. But you know what? We will never stop fighting for what's right. We'll never lay down. We'll never give up. We will keep talking about this because the fight is all we've got right now.
Absolutely. No, and is there any kind of thing that us as citizens should be doing besides protesting and whatnot? Is there anything we can do to support the legal community, or is it just kind of wait and see? Like, what can we be doing on top of protesting, letters, phone calls, and things like that?
Yeah.
Any recommendations in that sense.
So those things are great. Never stop protesting, speaking out, organizing, petitioning our government for a redress of our flippin' grievances, because boy, we got grievances right now. Absolutely call all of your elected officials, write them, text them, email them, do it early and often, do it repeatedly. Everybody from your local city council to your United States senator, because pressure bursts pipes. People will say, well, I'm in a red state, they're not going to listen to me. It doesn't matter. Speak out about the importance of the rule of law to a healthy democracy, and that we are demanding it. I don't care if they, respond to you or not. Keep doing it. Here's the other thing. We have so many good organizations who are in court. We've got Crew, right? We've got Free Speech for People. We've got the ACLU. We've got blue state governors and attorneys general, by the dozens, who are all in court fighting for us, for we the people, because many of our elected officials, the Republicans, are no longer fighting for their constituents. And frankly, some of the red folks are getting hurt as bad, if not worse, than folks in the blue states, like the farmers who have grain rotting in their silos because USAID was shut down. This is horrific for everybody, right, left, and center. So I never say give to this organization or that organization, but look at who is in court fighting the battles for we the people, these different civic organizations and nonprofits and law firms, and help them in any way you can.
Awesome. And obviously, y'all can make sure that you subscribe to Glenn. He's got some of the best legal analysis out there, and it's not just the hopeful stuff. Like me, he gives it to you straight, even though it may be hard at times. But he never gives up, and he was one of the first out there, out on an island and speaking the truth when it was hard and it wasn't popular. And I appreciate that. I respect that. And one of the hardest working folks out there. And I'm grateful to have you here on Substack now. I guess the last thing would be, we always have at the end of every conversation. You gave us some of that right there, obviously. But what would be something that for somebody who hears this and they've heard, yeah, I'm gonna speak out, I'm gonna, like, if they just can't, right? They feel like they can't, they don't see the future as positive. They see this going downhill fast. What do you say to those folks who need a hand, who need help getting up?
Yeah, great question. A couple of things. First of all, self care is hugely important. I will admit I'm not great at self care. My wife tries to help me and sometimes raises her voice a little bit, and I say, understand. But self care is important. Take a step away, take some downtime, turn the TV off, turn on the music, or go out with your friends or your family, your kids, your grandkids, in my case. So that's important because you need to remain energized. And here's the thing, you're going to be frustrated, you're going to be angry, you're going to feel perhaps anxious and desperate and despondent when you see the dang news every day and more reports about Donald Trump's insanity or lawlessness. But if you can take that frustration, because they want you defeated, if you can take that frustration and not give them the satisfaction and turn it into energy and determination and action, you can do things that don't necessarily put you out there. You can volunteer, because listen, we've got midterms coming up. All right. We're always in an election cycle. There is no time of the year that we're not in an election cycle. And I know people will say, well, they're not, it's not going to be a free and fair election. Well, that's not even a conversation we can begin to have if we don't get out in numbers too big to rig and too real to steal and get the dang Republicans out of control in Congress. I believe we can. I believe we have to. And you know what? Even if you don't want to get out there and protest, you can still work on candidates of your preference to do everything we can to restore some kind of sanity to our federal government, because right now the federal government has lost its damn mind.
Right. And we need everyone to step up and speak out. Everyone, former elected leaders and current, and we have a lot of people doing it right now. but we need them to be louder. We need them to be constant. We need them to be at that sort of Crockett AOC level, Bernie, like, you know, always. And Pete Buttigieg is also stepping up. So I'm looking forward to the new leaders that'll be coming forward, like Ken Martin and some other folks. But you're one of them, Glenn, and I appreciate you. Thanks for taking the time today. And don't forget to subscribe to him. If you missed the beginning of this interview, the middle, or any part of it, we're going to be releasing it this weekend. We'll have it in podcast form and also on Substack as well, and video on YouTube. Thanks for joining me today. We'll have another conversation soon, I'm betting, Glenn, and I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Scott. Keep punching, my friend. Keep punching.
Onward.